candid conversations, unfiltered opinions, and humor with Abeg's podcast.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. Today I have Trinity Jones with us. Trinity is the owner of Jones Travel Co. And she has this catchphrase that just really resonated with me like a minute ago, which is a surprise vacation. And I need one of those. I think everybody does. So, Trinity, fill us in. Why surprise vacation?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first, thank you so much for having me today. So excited to be here. Like she said, I am the owner of Jones Travel Co., a surprise vacation company. So I started the company a couple years ago. I've been in the medical device industry and sales for the last 8 years. And I knew a couple years ago when I was on maternity leave with my first baby that I didn't want to necessarily go back into the medical device world, but I think I was in denial. And I think my husband was also like, you're going back to work. So I went back to work. But since that point, I started feeling like every day, I was like, okay, you've got to figure out something different. Even though I'm passionate about medicine, I just don't feel like that was where God wanted me anymore. And we planned to have more babies. So fast forward to April of this year. I started Jones Travel Co. 2 years ago, but April of this year, while on maternity leave with my second baby, I made the decision that, okay, it is time for me to invest in my company and make it what I dream of it being. So I haven't really answered your question yet. So the surprise aspect of the company, when I started it, it all came from my husband and I's wedding. We got married in Italy on the Amalfi Coast, and we took 30 people over there with us. And I planned the whole thing. We got married on the Amalfi Coast, and then we traveled to Tuscany, Rome, Venice, and then we did Greece for a week as well. We did Athens and Santorini. And so for all of these locations, I planned the whole thing for 30 people. And I've always been that person to plan the trips, to plan the vacations. It's always been me. Maybe it's a little bit of a need for control. I don't know, but I've always been that person. So we went, and the trip was absolutely amazing. And because I planned it all, the group had some ideas of what we were doing, but they didn't really know what we were doing until we got there.
Right.
And so just to be the person that got to feel the joy and just the anticipation of kind of seeing everybody's reactions, like every time we would go to a new place or do something new that I had planned, I just felt, wow, this is such a cool feeling. And so on the airplane back home, my mom and a couple of other people that were with us were like, have you ever thought about starting a company doing this? And I'm like, what? Really? And they were like, yeah, that was amazing. So the whole idea of it being a surprise kind of came from that. I have loved travel my entire life, but I didn't want just a basic travel agency. I feel like that's kind of boring. So I did some brainstorming, I did some research, and then came up with the idea of surprise vacations. So there's a couple of other companies out there that do similar things, but not exactly like the way that I do it. So yeah, you don't know where you're going until you get to the airport. That kind of surprise.
Yeah, the mama in me just screamed like, "What do you mean? Why? Yeah, what? No." Okay, that's a concept that is free falling in a sense where we control everything. We control, getting up, getting children up, getting everybody dressed for school, picking up, dropping off, yeah, dinner, all of that stuff. It's a lot to ask for of people to fall. And, kudos to you for being a person that people can trust. So, Wow, okay. So like what made you come up with this concept as opposed to the regular old boring travel agency, right? Where okay, you need to go to London, I'll book your flight, find your hotel, these are your preferences or these are your choices, make a choice. As
Right.
opposed to, I'll get you there, just relax.
So I think a big part of it is just the feeling that I felt not only on that trip, but that everybody else expressed to me how much the anticipation leading up to the trip. I mean, we all met at my parents' house a couple weeks before because there were some of my family members who had never even been on an airplane. So I put together this whole presentation, and it wasn't to just share all of the details of everything that we were doing. It was more so to make sure, okay, this is airport etiquette. This is what you do on an airplane. This is what to expect. And then for the people that had flown before, which was the majority of the group, it was more so just to like make sure everybody knew, okay, this is the time that we're meeting here. This is what we're doing. This is what you should pack. Like, what kind of questions do you have? So the anticipation, I think that collectively we all felt leading up to that point, and then the feelings that they all shared with me and just seeing their reactions while we were on the trip. I mean, I rented this Airbnb for us in Tuscany in the middle of just rolling hills of vineyards and the most beautiful, picturesque thing I've ever seen. And they didn't know that I rented that place, but it slept all of us. And it had this beautiful pool and this huge yard. And the owners of the Airbnb, they even set up like a cooking class for us. And we made pasta and tiramisu and all of this stuff. But to kind of see the way that everybody reacted, like when they were finding out, like, we're staying there, like they're coming here and we're cooking, like it was just such an amazing feeling, compared to say I did share every single detail with everybody before we went,
Right.
then it wouldn't have, elicited the same kind of responses from everyone, which it doesn't take away from the fact that it was Italy and it was beautiful and it was an amazing villa and it had this beautiful pool. But I think it just added something a little more to it. And just speaking to what you mentioned about us all being in control of everything every day, what a relief to be able to have that trust in someone, to not have to worry about the planning, not have to take all of the time it takes to plan a vacation, which on average is about 30 hours per a 1 week trip, which is, I mean, I don't know who has that time to do that, but just all of the aspects that go into not having to do it yourself, but then the emotional and mental response and the changes that happen. There's a lot of research actually out there on what surprises do to your brain.
Yeah.
And like neuroplasticity of the brain and how experiencing consistent surprises, whether that's, not just a consistent vacation, but just consistent positive surprises or experiences, your brain kind of rewires to expect positive things to happen in the future.
Right.
And so there's science around, the dopamine release from the anticipation period to the experience of, being on a vacation with someone that you love, and the oxytocin and all of the hormones around building bonds, and then, just your brain and your emotions. And there's just so many positives out of a vacation in general, but when you throw in the surprise aspect, it's just even better.
Yeah. So when you're planning a vacation for your clients, do they have a say at all, or do they just give an idea of where they would like to be? So if somebody wants to go to Asia someplace, do they maybe tell you, okay, I'd like to go to Thailand and the rest is yours? Or I'd like to go to Thailand, I would like to experience the farming villages, or I want to travel to the continent of Africa. I want to stay on a safari, things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
It is more input better for you to plan or less? When we're talking about the elements of surprise.
Very good question. And I think that that's the biggest question that I get from people, because they're like, wait, are you just pulling out at like a location and all of this out of a hat? And absolutely not. That is not how it works. So yeah, I don't know that I could even do that. But so the first step in the process, whenever I have a customer or a client who's potentially interested, is we get on a 30-minute consultation call and we just kind of get to know each other on a personal level. Like, I want them to know I'm a real person. You're not booking something through the internet without seeing and talking to a real person. After that call, I then email them a very in-depth questionnaire. So in that questionnaire, they tell me as much detail as possible. So there's questions in there as far as like their personality traits, like vacations they've been on in the past. Where are places that you absolutely do not want to go? What climate do you want? What activities do you like? Are there any medical conditions that you or anyone in your group have that could influence what I should plan for you? And so it's a very detailed questionnaire. And so on the consultation call, I encourage them to tell me more than you think that you should. Because even though it is a surprise vacation, I still want them to go somewhere and do things that they want to do. I just want to help make all of that just even more exciting for them.
Sounds good. I like that aspect. There's an input from the client. So just to drag your past and not so distant past into this a little bit, how much of your experience as a medical sales rep has actually helped you in curtailing your business to be exactly what you want it to be?
Yeah. So for my business being exactly what I want it to be, we're obviously still a work in progress. However, I could not and probably would not have started this business if it weren't for my past 8 years in medical device sales.
Right.
I think that, and I loved my experience in medical device sales. I loved being able to work in surgery and work with the surgeons and be able to provide products that I knew were benefiting the patients. But it's sales and it requires so much dedication, and you can't give up, and thick skin and emotional intelligence and just researching your customer and researching your hospital staff, and so much detail and time goes into even before the very first time that you speak to a surgeon or walk into a hospital. And then every single time you come into contact with that surgeon or any of the staff in the hospital, there is an expectation of you, and you have a reputation for yourself to uphold, but also you're representing your company when you're in there. So I think a lot of the things that go into being successful in that industry is you can't take criticism and take it negatively, because there's a lot of criticism that comes down from leadership, and it's not necessarily bad, but you have to be able to take that and build on it and get better. Another thing too is you have to be flexible. You have to always remember that the business is for the patient. So if you can keep that in mind, those are all things that go into being successful in that industry. So I know I just rambled off a lot of things, but I think being a business owner, a lot of those really translate. I have to be very dedicated. If, this is my first full week of focusing solely on my company. Friday was my last day in medical device. I mean, it's even been a roller coaster this week. I mean, way more highs than lows, but there's so many things where I'm like, oh, wow, I didn't know that I needed to do that. Or, oh, I need to call 10 people today. Like, business insurance, like what? So it's all of these things. And there's a lot of things that I ran into this week where I was like, okay, this is a little overwhelming. This is a lot, but I know the end goal that I want to achieve. And I think the bigger picture for myself and my husband and our family is we've prayed a lot about this. We've prayed a lot about the business. We've prayed about quitting my job. I mean, that was a 2.5 year process. It wasn't just overnight. We decided, yeah, let's just, invest in a travel company and see what happens. Like, no, that wasn't the case. There was a lot of prayer and research and just talking things through and figuring things out to get to where we are. And as far as other skills that I've translated, medical device sales is all about relationships. It's all about building trust with your surgeons and with the staff and with other reps from other companies. And you just have to be genuine and you just have to be trustworthy. There's so many times where you're in the OR and you get asked a question and you don't know and you want to make up an answer so bad because you want to look so good to that surgeon, but you can't. And the reason being is, first of all, that's morally and ethically not okay. But there's a patient on that table under anesthesia. If you don't know something, you have to say that you don't know because you have to get to the answer. And so I think that that's the biggest thing with my mission and me being the owner of the company is I want my clients to trust me and know that you give me your money. That's a big deal. You're trusting me to plan you something, a vacation that's not cheap, and you want it to be a surprise. Like, you're trusting me to do that. I want to make sure from the beginning that I'm building that credibility with them and letting them know, like, hey, every single penny that you give me is going toward your trip to make this what you want it to be. And so, yeah, just relationships and that trustworthiness are huge. And this is, it's a service role. I get to serve others. And so if I can exude those kind of traits to my customers, then that's ultimately the goal.
Beautiful. That's great. And just how you have identified that building that trust is very important with your customer base is really the foundation of success, because we can market and we can do all this extra stuff. However, we pay attention to reviews when we're buying anything.
Right. Absolutely.
Right. So those reviews, the reviews, the word of mouth recommendation, those good words are things that you need to grow your company. And it's great that you come from an ethical standpoint, that you've already identified that is what you need, and you're not having to learn that, then learn people's skills, then learn relationship building. That is a tough learning curves, but you're coming in already a great student of what it means to take something seriously. So kudos to you. So starting a business is not for the faint of hearts. And you've rightfully stated that it was a decision that took, years and, a lot of prayer, a lot of conversation with your husband and what that would look like for your family unit. Did you face concerns about people outside of your immediate unit, which is yourself and your husband, being critical about walking away from a career that was safe, a career that had the security of a paycheck, to start something that you were building from ground up?
Absolutely. I mean, well, I was in the industry for 8 years. And so I think even for me to get to that point, I had a lot of doubts. Like I said, whenever I first had the idea to start the business when I was on maternity leave back in 2022 with my first daughter, I started having these thoughts, and then I was like, no, like, what? You have to go back to work. What are you talking about? This is your life. This is what you've done for so long. And that feeling just didn't go away. And so over, 2 years of prayer, I finally got to the point where I was like, all right, God, I'm going to listen to you. So that's when I started talking to everybody around me, even my coworkers at my company. And so many of them were like, wait, okay, hold on. Is there somebody you can talk to? Like, wait, how about you call this person? She just had 2 babies also, and she's made it work.
Right.
And I'm like, no. And then I would talk to another person, maybe someone outside of my company. And they're like, what will you do? And I'm like, I own a business. I'm going to invest in that. And so there was hearing the concern from other people was hard for me to continue on with what I truly felt in my heart that God wanted for my life and what my husband and I wanted for this business. Hearing that, it was kind of discouraging because I would go back and forth. I would have these conversations with people, and then I would take a step back and be like, okay, yeah, that's pretty crazy. Like, you can't go from a dual income home, this life that you've built with 2 incomes, down to 1. Like, what will you do? What do you mean? Like, what about your mortgage? Like, those kind of thoughts. And so, yeah, it was tough. There was a lot of, I'm not even going to use the word negativity. I think it was just shock for a lot of people because I had been successful in my career as a medical device rep. But when you have kids, everything changes, and you take a step back and you realize what the priorities are. And so at any time anybody would be like, wait, are you sure? And then I would bring myself back down to earth and be like, okay, no, I'm doing this for my family and for our future. I'm not doing this for the medical device companies that I worked for. I'm not doing this for my coworkers, even though I love them very much. Like, no, this was just the best decision for us. And let me tell you, 1 week into being just focused on my business and my family, I feel like a whole new person. My husband even commented the other day, he was like, I can tell you're in a much better place. And I'm like, thank you, God. Thank you so much. So it's a relief to get that kind of like reassurance when you're going back and forth for so long on what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel really confident in it, and I am so excited.
Happy for you. It's different. We spoke a few weeks back,
Mm-hmm.
and to talk to you today, I told you after our conversation, I had you on my mind, and just the brightness in your being is palpable. So it shows that you're happy. I understand wanting to do something out of the norm, out of the expectation of safety is. It takes guts to step out to do your own thing. It's not always going to be linear, right? But the willingness to ride that wave so that you can build this thing for you, either leaving a legacy for your girls or for your babies, or just doing something that fulfills you as a person,
Right.
fulfills you as a mother, as a wife, as a sister, as a daughter, as a cousin, as a person, as a human being. So kudos to you for fighting those voices, because those voices are loud. When those loud voices are steeped in reality, it's tough to fight it, because the reality is, like you mentioned, 2 income household. We've built this beautiful life. There was security behind that. Now, this is a completely different avenue to go. So much unknown, right? So
Mm-hmm.
much unknown. If you don't show up for a day of work, you have six sick days to use, right?
Right.
It makes up for it. That's just sick day when you have a business, you know?
Right.
So to take on that degree of, let's get this done, is commendable. It very much is commendable. So kudos to you, Trinity. So how excited are you about this journey that you just embarked on? What are the things that you're looking to learn and grow from?
Oh, wow. I mean, there's just a list a mile long. I think I am just most excited about learning, just becoming, which I feel like I am an expert in my industry, but just continuing to learn more, every day, every week, every year, like just like it was in medical device sales, like you don't start out just knowing everything. you grow and you mess up and you fail, and then you fix it and you do better and you learn from it.
Yeah.
And so I think just growing and learning in being a business owner. And I mean, there's so many people that I've talked to who are also business owners as well. And they're like, don't make the same mistakes that I made. Don't do it this way, do this. And I'm like, okay, that's great advice, but there's going to be mistakes that I'm going to make for sure. And I'll probably make some of the same ones that you did just because it's part of it. But I think really the thing that I'm most excited about is not feeling the pressure to be perfect like I was feeling in the medical device world. And I know that there's a lot of medical device reps out there and just people in sales in general who feel that way because there's the pressure of a quota. This is a totally different pressure because this is, if I don't grow this business into a viable source of income for our family, then, that's a whole another issue. But at least I have the determination and the grit and the courage to try. And I know that about myself because I've been that way my entire life. I did it for 8 years in medical device sales. So I'm not even concerned about that. If it fails and it doesn't turn into what we hope it to be financially for us, then that's okay. And if it evolves into something else, then that's okay too. But I'm so excited to just do it for me. Like, this is like my baby, and be able to do it the way that I want to do it. And with that, with the pressure that I was feeling before in my previous role not being there anymore, I've already noticed that over the last week, I'm way more present with my daughters. I'm way more present with my husband. And even though I told my husband the other day, I was like, I could work 24 hours a day on this business right now. So it's not that I'm working less. I think that I'm working for different reasons now. And it's just already improved my quality of life. And like I mentioned earlier, I get to pick up my girls from daycare and bring them home and cook dinner and hang out with them and give them baths and not rush to get them into bed. And in the mornings, we don't have to rush to wake up. We wake up, we eat breakfast, we get changed. We're not in a hurry to get out the door. I'm spending time with them. I'm hugging them. I'm kissing them. It's like those things I don't remember doing very much at all when I was still in the med device world. And even like I've had a lot of conversations with my husband this week just about how I'm feeling. And normally right after church on Sunday mornings, we would get out of church and we would come home. My brain would immediately shift back over to Sunday scaries for work tomorrow. This is awful. I don't want to do it. Like, this is just, and I didn't have that feeling on Sunday. I was like, oh, this is great. I can cook. No, you go lay down. I'll do the dishes. He normally does the dishes. And I was like, I'll do the dishes. That's fine. It's fine. And it's been great. It's been great for our marriage too. And, financially, it's going to be an adjustment for us for sure. Right. We sat down, we made a budget, we went through everything, and we're going to be fine. We made some changes where we could make changes. Mm-hmm. It's going to be maybe a different lifestyle for a little bit, but so what? We have a roof over our heads. We're going to have food to eat. We both have cars to drive. My car is paid off. Thank the Lord. Like, it's just these little things that, like, what else do we actually need right now? Like, we're in the perfect scenario and perfect conditions for me to dedicate my time and energy to growing this business. And then I don't have to miss out on all of this time and energy, that I wasn't going to have to spend with my girls. Yeah. So it's just all around. It's just a better, situation for our whole family.
It really sounds really, really nice to hear you say that, because we live in a society where money talks. Money is almost everything. Yep. And we fail to see where we're expending our energy and time in return for that money.
Right.
Right. So all those kisses you took for granted and you didn't even notice you were missing them. You found them
Yep.
and you value them now.
Yeah.
You know, that extra 5, 10 minutes of Z's that you're now, appreciating instead of getting up and rushing out and, get out, no, stop,
I know.
Nobody stressed in the morning anymore.
I would get in the car in the mornings and I would be, after getting the girls dressed and fed and ready, I would be like dripping sweat. And then I'd have to drop them off and then go into the hospital and like work. And I'm like, this is like, I haven't done that this week. Both girls slept in until 7:30 yesterday morning, and it was amazing. I was like, oh, I have the energy now that I need to dedicate a full day to Jones Travel Co., get some stuff done. I had a few clients actually book calls with me to book vacations. Like, things are, just everything is just feeling like we're on a better path right now.
That's how you know you're on the right track. You finally listen. You listen to, the voice of God, the voice of reasoning, and
Right.
you obeyed. And look at you, reaping the benefit. It's great to have the support of a loving husband. Can you talk about that?
Yes.
How, his support has been a good enough reason for you to lean in.
Yes, absolutely. If it wasn't for his support, I mean, this wouldn't have happened. I would have never quit my job. It was, in the beginning, it was definitely, 2 years ago when I started the company and I brought this up to him, like, hey, I'm not going to go back to work. He was like, what is she talking about? She's like got all of these postpartum hormones. She's literally lost her mind. Like she's going back. And then I kind of just laughed it off and I was like, yeah, you're right. I'm going back to work, whatever. And so fast forward to April of 2024 on maternity leave. That's when I like really started getting serious with him about it. I was like, okay, look, I'm struggling. And I will say it took him a little bit to get fully on board with it. Although he fully supported Jones Travel Co. from the beginning, it took him a little while to fully accept the idea of not having my income.
Right.
And honestly, it took me a while to accept that as well, because on paper, we were like, oof, okay, that's probably not going to happen.
Right.
And as I came back from maternity leave and, I was in Atlanta for a week and then I came home and then I had to go back to Atlanta for another week for work. And then it's surgery schedule that, surgery doesn't stop.
Yeah.
My company doesn't stop caring if I'm hitting my quota. So it was like all of these stressors and pressures coming from everywhere. And so it found myself having the conversation with him more often and getting more serious. Like at this point, it's like, okay, this isn't actually a joke anymore. I am struggling in this job, although I gained such great experience and I built so much character and I learned so much. I just knew that that's not where God wanted me anymore. And of course, like I mentioned, I did a lot of praying.
Yeah.
And it was praying prayers like, God, if this is just Trinity being selfish and not like, if I'm being selfish and feeling this way, please just like redirect me, change my thoughts. Like, but if this is truly you and you're telling me that I need to do something different and this is not where you want me for our family, then I want to listen. I just need you to keep showing me, because this is a hard decision to make. Mm-hmm. And so then I would go to my husband and be like, hey, okay, can you please pray about this as well? Like, just if this is what God wants for me as your wife, if this is what God wants for our family, I need to know where your heart is. And, if God's telling you something completely different, then okay. But we even had our associate pastor come over and talk to us. I mean, it was a rough few months of us trying to get to this point. And so over the course of probably like April, last Friday was my last day, but April until probably the beginning of December. That's how long it took. And he could just see that like our quality of life, I wasn't cooking dinner. The house was just a mess all the time. It was chaos. The time that we did have with the girls was so short, and it wasn't about spending quality time with them. Like I mentioned earlier, it was getting them fed, getting them bathed, getting them in the bed so we could wake up tomorrow and do the same thing all over again. And so he finally came to me one day and he was like, I think that God has really changed my heart. Like, I think it's time. I think that we need to talk about timeline and everything. We need to sit down and budget and look at finances, but I think it's time to make this decision. And of course I was overjoyed. I was like, really? I can quit? Really? Okay. And in that time, I found a business coach and I'm in this great program. And I started attending some events and having booths at events. And he started really seeing people's reactions around a surprise vacation company and what I was doing. And he started really trying to be more involved in it. And I think when he did that, he was like, okay, this is actually legit. Like, people are booking with her. People are trusting her. She knows what she's doing. He started referring to me as a business owner, and I'm like, okay. Like, he's a jokester. He's the guy that's always making jokes, but he was serious. He was like, you're a business owner. Mm-hmm. And I was like, whoa, I am.
That's me.
Yeah. Wow. When you say it like that, that actually makes it a little scary. But right. So, and then, like I mentioned, he said this past week, like, I can just tell you're in a much better place. So it's like, having his support, like I wouldn't have quit if he didn't get to that point. Yeah. I wouldn't have invested in the business coach. Yeah. I wouldn't be here talking to you today for sure if that's not how everything played out. So having his support was like, outside of, God putting this on my heart, that was the number one thing that had to happen for this to happen.
That's great. I'm happy for you. And yes, lean into it. You're a business owner. Point to yourself like, that's me.
That's me.
Embrace it because that's you. And, to his credit, when a man supports his wife, it bodes well for the household. It really does. And again, his reaction time is very understandable because when you both started out with building the foundation of whatever your household looks like today together. With two incomes, this is how we are going to build this thing up. However, when the plan changed, he didn't run for the hills.
Right.
He didn't do that. He's like, okay, it's a lot. Let me process it. He was willing to talk to people. He was willing to at least sit on the consideration stool. Right. So for him to get around to it was, again, I commend him because I've heard stories in the other direction, right?
I agree completely.
Right. For somebody to understand that, for me to be supporting of my wife, granted, this is not the plan we had from the beginning, but we have to adjust so that this can actually have room to live, room to grow, room to make us better. Because again, everybody benefits, right? Mom is happy, it trickles, right? Yeah. Mom is happy and rested. The kids are happy and rested. Dad is happy and fed, right? And the house is clean.
It's not a coincidence. That's just the fact. That's science. I don't know how else to say it. That's how it works.
That's just it. Right? Yeah. So for a happy marriage, happy home, supporting one another is very, very important. And especially when it's done in a manner that is respectful. You went to him and you talked about things, how you're supposed to, with your spouse. Scary conversation, but however, it needed to be had. Right. Yes. You brought it up years ago. You brought it up again. At this point, it's like, look, we have to really consider it. I respect your time. You have to see how this is affecting us. And good for them for stepping back and really seeing how important this was to not just you, but the family as a whole. So good on you, sir. Let's talk about people that say it in the healthcare field or any career somebody who's looking to do something, but the noise super loud, the reality super reality nature, you know,
Mhm.
what would be something that you can tell somebody to just go for it?
So I think that, I mean, just to what we were just speaking to, like, thankfully I have a spouse that supported me in this, and a mom and a dad and siblings and best friends. I think that is the biggest thing in doing something like this.
Yes.
It's scary. And if you don't have people supporting you and cheering you on and saying, no, that's a great idea. Trust me, you're great at that. You should do it. Then you're not going to be able to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, the second that you try something and you don't have a support system, you'll give up because you don't have anybody else telling you not to give up.
Yeah.
So I think, especially coming from healthcare, and you're a nurse, right? Yeah. Yeah. So, like what healthcare has turned into. Like, there's so much just, and not even just med device sales, nurses, doctors, just all kinds of staff in the hospital. There's so much burnout. And I know that there's still a lot of providers and nurses out there who are in healthcare for the right reason to truly help the patient. But unfortunately, a lot of healthcare is not that way now.
True.
And it's just not a good environment to be in a lot of the time. You burn out, you just look at each patient as kind of like a transaction, and, the heart of having that care for this individual that you're treating as another person, it's not always there.
Yeah.
So I have spoken to a lot of people over the last few years who are leaving healthcare to start their own companies. There's a scrub tech that I worked with who started a barbecue sauce company. And he was like, you would have never guessed it, but he was like, it's thriving and I'm so happy. And I'm like, see, like, you have to have a support system. And, if you're miserable, like, you don't have to continue to be miserable.
Yeah.
I know that financially, like, not everybody has the ability, not everybody's married and has another income, but there's definitely things that you can do. There's things that you can do to make ends meet if this is truly a goal that you have, is to be your own boss and run your own business. I mean, there's all kinds of things that you can do working from home to make, $500 here, $500 there, like whatever it is to make this happen. So not everybody's path is just, cut and dry. But I think if you're looking to get out of healthcare or whatever industry it is that you're in, find what you're passionate about. Find what is something that you can do for a long time that you truly feel that you're not going to ever want to quit.
Yeah.
And then find the people that you need to support you in it. I mean, I have the group text from Italy. I still blow all of those people up all the time. I'm like, hey, post this to your Instagram, please. Hey, who do you know that does this? Can you all talk to 5 people today about this? I'm planning a surprise international trip in September. And I'm like, hey, please talk to 5 people today. And look, they're my friends and family, and they're doing it for me, which is amazing. But again, like, friends and family, a support system. Like, you have to find those people. And it doesn't have to be 30 people.
Right.
You just have to have somebody there telling you it's a good idea and telling you not to give up. And people, you just need companionship anyway in everything that you do. We're not supposed to do life alone. We're not supposed to do things alone.
We're not. And, unfortunately, the way the world around us is set up is that we've learned to be selfish.
Right.
And, just to add to everything that you said, which was absolutely valid, I'm thankful for my support. I'm thankful that I do have a husband that is supportive. You need that balance. He needs time to think. Sometimes it's frustrating, but he needs time to think.
Right.
He needs time to, check all the boxes, line up all the docs, right? That is just the way he functions. But I'm glad to have that support, that person to say, hey, go for it. You can do this. And for somebody who may not, because it doesn't always happen.
Right.
You have the blessing of families and friends that, do support you. Not everybody has that. Be
Right.
your own support system. Be your own support system. Let the naysayers see the result. I'm a big believer in that adage that the best revenge is success.
Mm.
The best revenge is insane success. You don't have to do everything all at once. Those little consistent steps and work that you put into it will
Right.
shock you.
Yeah.
Will shock your socks right off.
Yeah.
So little by little, if you're working that job, work that job, get, the capital to invest in your business, little by little, put yourself out there. Thank goodness for social media.
Right.
Advertise yourself. Have people, who are willing to advertise you, but make sure you sell yourself. You let people see what you can do, because nobody is going to buy something that they can't see.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not all of us are comfortable with that, but it is something that it is useful for growth. So this conversation was so great. And Trinity, I'm very happy for you. I can see the joy, the anticipation to sending that letter in. I could see the stress. It wasn't starting the business that was stressing you. It was the knowledge that, what? Yeah.
Look, I called my best friend on the phone and I was like, I'm about to do it. And she was like, woo. Stop. She was like, first, we need to pray over this right now. And then she prayed and she was like, all right, send it. And so I hit send and I was like, okay, I did it. And I didn't feel 1 ounce of like remorse. Immediately after, I was like, wow, I know that was the right decision.
Yes. You knew it was the right decision. I think it was just getting to the place to send it. It
Right.
wasn't that you were remorseful or you were scared. It was like, I have to cut this cord and I have to cut this cord.
Yeah.
And you're like, you had the letter, everything was ready to go. So very happy for you. Very happy that you're embarking on your own journey. You've got incredible support, which is a blessing. Not everybody has that. You have incredible skill set. Again, not everybody has that. So you're set up good, girl. You're really set up good.
It's all God.
It is. You finally listen. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Yes, it's been great talking to you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Hopefully you got something from it. All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in to Abeg's podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. It really helps us out. We'd love to hear your thoughts and continue the discussion. So join us on social media or drop us a message. Until next time, keep exploring, stay curious, and keep pushing the boundaries of your world.